Hey guys, welcome to BP the Bible Perspective. Is the chosen a Mormon plot or just another human depiction of Jesus? Now before we get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome. I'm deconstructing this interview that Melissa Doherty conducted with the creator of The Chosen, the hit series of the life of Jesus, Dallas Jenkins. And in doing this, what came out, and this is why I'm lingering on this point, because the issue of his Mormon connection, excuse me, or Mormon influence, the question, came up. Now, in doing this, I found that there were a lot of, in fact, let me play the video again and let you hear him say it himself, and then I'll comment on the other side.
What was your reaction, or I guess was there a reaction when a bunch of Latter-day Saints from VidAngel approached you and were like, let's make this happen, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. The Latter-day Saints at VidAngel are fully aware, and we're fully aware when we first started meeting and talking about this project, that publicly speaking, it might not necessarily be the best thing for the show if people know that Latter-day Saints are behind at least the distribution of it. And we love the same Jesus. That's not something that you often hear. Sometimes it's like, oh, they believe in a different Jesus than we do.
Statement.
Yeah, no, it's the same. I mean, I'll sink or swim on that statement, and it's controversial, and I don't mind getting criticized at all for the show, and I don't mind being called a blasphemer. Gosh, for all the stuff that maybe we don't see eye to eye on, that all happened. That's all based on stuff that happened after Jesus was here. Well, the whole reason we're doing it is we want to introduce the authentic Jesus to a billion.
Okay, so that was the clip that raised a lot of confusion, raised a lot of questions, and the main question is, how much influence did the Mormons have on the making of The Chosen? And the reason why I'm bringing Dallas and The Chosen to task is because they claim to present a biblical Jesus, and that's what I'm commenting on. The Mormon issue kind of adds a little more depth to this. And so it's interesting to me how Dallas is so cozy with the Mormons. And then I'm going to comment later. I don't know if I'll do it in this video or in another video, or the last video. But when he denies that there is an influence of the Mormons, and then we can ask the question: well, did he attempt to, work under a Mormon ploy? So the question is valid, being his statement. But let me show you this verse again. This clip, that I think it's important to understand. This is what Dallas says about The Chosen.
Which then puts me in a dangerous spot when I'm making a show about Jesus, where 95% of the content isn't from the Bible. So
okay, so we played this in the previous videos. So if you claim that The Chosen is about the life of Jesus, and 95% of The Chosen is not from the Bible, then how can it be a biblical Jesus? Now, you will also note that he rarely says that it is a biblical Jesus. He uses the term authentic Jesus. And that to me is a play on words when he uses the term authentic. This is their promo. You hear him say this, the authentic Jesus. That's a play on words, because the term authentic doesn't necessarily mean biblical. When he uses the term authentic, he's talking about how he chooses to portray him. And in that is even questionable, because is it authentic? The question is really, what is it that he is displaying? What is he presenting? Now I want to go one more clip on this Mormon issue, and some of the stuff is so he contradicts himself in terms of his Mormon connection. Now again, VidAngel is an LDS production company. I didn't know that. So there's a lot of Mormon connection here. And it's interesting to me that he chooses a Mormon production company, a Mormon distribution. There's a lot of Mormonism in the sense of that's helping him out. And let's go through this clip here, and then I'll comment through the clip. Now again, this is about a nearly 2-hour interview that Melissa conducted. So we chopped it up, and now she's going to confront him, and I use that word lightly because she's really not confronting him. What bothers me, of course, how he plays coy with this interview. Now, we just heard how he defends, and the statement is that he and his Mormon friends love the same Jesus. And we kind of got into that in the last video with the last clip. In terms of what does he mean by they love the same Jesus? And it is just total crap what he's saying. He is proving to be very shrewd, and in my opinion, he really plays Melissa, who herself is an apologist. And I can't help but wonder that she invited him on the show to promote the show and him, and in doing so, she lets him get away with a lot of things that probably in other interviews she would hold him more to the fire on some of the statements. So I want to go to this clip, and then and talk my way through it here, and then we'll comment as we go.
Altered or changed or influenced by anyone but myself. There's about a dozen LDS folks who are primarily responsible for that.
Okay, so we're kind of coming in. You have to kind of have watched the previous video to see where I'm cutting in on. She's again, and the reason I'm cutting in here because she's going to ask an even more straightforward question in a moment. But the question is that, when he says that the Mormon or the LDS, like elders, the church, anyone from the LDS organizations they don't tell him what to do. In other words, they didn't tell him how to write the script. They did not tell him how to present Jesus. Okay. Now again, I have some more stuff coming. That what I'm going to tell you, and my response to that is they did not have to tell him, okay, since he's already said 95% of the chosen is not based upon the Bible, and the fact that he said that they love the same Jesus. So those two statements there is telling. But let's continue, because I think it's going to get into more pointed issues and questions here. Let's continue.
Who invented the technology, who, unlike almost any distributor or streaming platform in the world ever, are saying, we will not speak into this at all. It is your show. We were not going to influence it at all. We're not going to tell you what to do. You get to do it. It's yours. We're just here to service it and to get it to the world.
So I have a question about that.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Would you know if you're being influenced? Like,
Now, this is a bogus question to me. As a reporter, when you hear reporters ask questions like this, I think it's a bogus question. Personally, I think it's a stupid question. You know, and in some respects, it's not even the point. What I'm going to say is, they're not influencing him. They're not influencing Dallas. Dallas is influencing them or using them. That would be my response. That's my take. Let's continue.
how much do you know about LDS beliefs?
Okay, now, again, I'm going to emphasize why I think this is a bogus question because, and I'm going to show you a video that the Mormons did about the life of Jesus. They're not promoting, Dallas is not promoting Mormon theology in this movie. And that's not the point. At least it's not the point that I'm making. In other words, he's not promoting the LDS church. And at least not directly, okay? And I'm not saying in any kind of way. I'm going to comment later because I'm going to show you some videos where what I'm going to say what I think the influence is. Okay? So I'm going to let her talk, but understand that what she's getting ready to ask him, in my opinion, is a straw man because he could knock it down because that's not what he's doing. The direct beliefs of the LDS church. That's not what's being portrayed in the film directly. You know, I'm going to put that, as I told you before, I watched the first season, I haven't watched the second season yet. Okay. And let me also say this, that there are people who have done a much deeper dive into this Mormon issue than I have. Okay. And I played you one of the clips, but let's continue.
What is their gospel?
Well, the phrase, how much do I know? I think I would say,
Well, tell me two things. What is their gospel and who do they believe Jesus is?
Now, again, I want to interject this. I think it's irrelevant because that's not what he's portraying. However, do I think that there is a Mormon influence? I do, but not in the way people think. And again, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show a video where I think it's not just the Mormons that's the influence here, but he also consulted a Catholic, a Jewish person, and an evangelical theologian. Okay, and that's why I'm saying. So I'm going to talk about that later. So again, it's not just the Mormon, doctrine, and she's going to get into it. I want you to hear what she has to say. It is a good point in terms of what the Mormons believe, and it's going to go to, if you say we love the same Jesus, this is their Jesus. But it doesn't have anything to do with the film and what Dallas produced in the Jesus that Dallas produced in the film. All right, let's continue.
Well, here's why I'm going to defer that question and maybe hope to get a little bit more specific, because I'm not trying to shirk the question. I'm going to say, I don't know enough to intelligently say, to answer a question like what is their gospel with
Which
authority.
is why I ask.
Yeah.
And watch for the contradiction. He very much so knows what they believe. And he's getting ready to contradict this statement himself, which he's allowed to do. But Melissa, let's continue.
So I'm not going to claim that I know enough to know. I know quite a bit, I think, because I've.
So he just kind of said, I know a bit. Now, in another clip I showed you where and he's going to say it again here, he spent hours, years with Mormons, Mormon leadership. Remember, in another clip, he said that he asked them every conceivable question that everybody else is asking him. So here's my point. He knows enough, okay? He knows enough to be able to form an opinion. Years ago, I had what ended up being a weekly Bible study with one of the elders of the local kingdom halls. That Bible study was held weekly for, I want to say, a year to a year and a half. And in each time, it was anywhere from 2 to 3 hours we would spend. So I got to know pretty much what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe and what they teach. I have a whole collection that he's given me, collection of their books that he's given me. And I believe I have to go and take a look, but I believe I even have what they call the study in the scriptures, and that's all, I'm not going to get into that's their real source of authority. A study in the scriptures by Charles Rutherford. But anyway, here's my point. I spend enough time with them to know. Now I can't tell you everything about the Jehovah's Witness, but I can certainly tell you I spent enough time to say, here's that they teach a false gospel, a false Jesus, a false God. What you're going to see here is the double talk that Dallas will do to say, I don't know enough, but I know enough. This is to get away from saying that the Mormons teach a false gospel, which in and of itself is bad. Let's continue.
Done a lot of study, and I've spoken to a lot of LDS folks over the last 3 years, including some of the highest ranking members of the church.
And there he just said it. He spent at least 3 years. So he knows enough to answer her question. He is going to refuse to answer her question because simply he doesn't want to offend his Mormon friends or the Mormon business connection. He doesn't want to say that they have a false gospel. That's what he's avoiding saying. The Mormons teach a heretical false gospel, a heretical false Jesus. Now later, as I said, I'm going to get into how they present, so it's even more deceptive how they try to claim that they are Christians. Dallas is endorsing that. And that does go directly to how and what kind of Jesus he is presenting. More on that later. Let's continue.
And I've asked a lot of questions, but I'm still not comfortable in a public forum saying this is their gospel, because that's such a huge question. So
no, it's not. It's not a huge question. Notice he didn't say he couldn't answer it. Notice he's basically saying he's not answering it because he could answer it. And he knows, remember, he went to Bible school, he was raised in evangelical circles, he was raised and attended and worked for an evangelical church. So he knows enough to know what the biblical Jesus is. That's what makes this most disheartening here. Okay? Now, I don't believe that he's presenting a Mormon Jesus, but the motives here is very suspect. Let's continue.
I'm not going to, for both their sake and for mine, and for yours, and for the show's, claim that I know enough to say this is their gospel.
Well, I appreciate your honesty with that, because that.
All right, I'm gonna cut her off because she's gonna kind of again do some. Sometimes I don't mind cutting her off in a sense because she really soft pedals him. But the idea of saying that they believe the same Jesus is what he is upholding here. Saying they believe the same Jesus, that's what he's upholding. that he believes that his Mormon friends believe that they love the same Jesus. The question then, by him saying that, we justly can ask him, do you then, Dallas, love the biblical Jesus? Because Mormons don't. And by you defending them, protecting them, we can legitimately ask, do you love the biblical Jesus? I'll have more statements on that later.
Why I ask. Okay. Again, informed audience. Like, this is stuff that they do know enough to spot it, to know it, why it's a problem. Again, not the pitchfork crowd. I'm talking about the people that really care about you and care about the show. People that watch it and they're not mean, you know. I would call them kindred spirits. They're people that I would hang out with any day of the week and recommend. Like, they're balanced, loving. Do you believe that God was once a man and that you can be a God? Do you believe that?
Again, I think I think this is just a silly question. Of course, he doesn't believe that. He's getting ready to really. Now he's going to answer that. By the way, he's going to answer that question. And with the question that she is allowing him to dodge is to not answer the question about, do you guys love the same Jesus? And she's going to lay out what the Mormons believe, but at the same time allow him not to directly answer, here's what your Mormons friends believe. How do we know that? Because they're Mormons. And what Dallas said before, if you remember, that they said, well, we don't believe, he kind of implied it, well, intimated it that, well, you know, my Mormon friends say that they don't believe some of that hard Mormon stuff, even though he never got very specific. And again, my retort to that was, then why are they Mormons? Why are they Mormons? Let's continue.
Do I believe that?
Yes.
No, I do not believe that.
So if the Mormon missionaries that come to my door, the LDS missionaries who I love, and they bring me cookies and they're always so nice.
I know I'm cutting in a lot, but again, I want to cut in and address this as it is in real time, right? But notice what she's not asking. She's talking about the Mormons that knock on her door. Why don't she ask about the Mormons that he claims love the same Jesus? See, in other words, she's co-signing with him. Why don't she ask him, do your Mormon friends, believe this? Well, she's getting ready to lay out, which is a good argument for Mormonism or against Mormonism. But why isn't she asking, hey, do your friends that you co-sign, do they believe this? And if they believe this, how can they then love the same Jesus that you love? And then, of course, the better question would be, how can they love the biblical Jesus? See, all of this is what he's dodging in his defense for his Mormon friends. Let's continue.
And we sat down and we talk about it, and they're trying to tell me the gospel. Okay, they're trying to tell me the gospel. They'd come to my door for a reason. If we believed the same thing, why would they come to my door trying to share the gospel? They, in essence, think we have half the story. Okay, so if you've looked into this, I'm sure you've heard of this. You know, Joseph Smith, okay, had a vision of Heavenly Father and Jesus, and all churches are anathema. They're cursed. They are wrong. Okay, so he was given, oh, here's the full gospel. So it's like, which isn't just the Book of Mormon, it's lots of stuff. But understand that the pinnacle of their gospel is to join the LDS Church, but it's what they call progression. Have you heard them talk about progression?
Now, before he answers that, and you can imagine how he's going to answer it, he has heard it. He's read about Mormons. He's studied it in college, but more so, he's had interactions with them. He's just going to skirt around the question, and she's going to allow him to skirt around the question and not really answer it. Do his friends who are Mormons and say they love the same Jesus, do they believe this? Let's continue.
I've heard the term progression, yes.
Okay. What do you think that means when they use the word progression?
Well, here's where I'm going to continue to be obsessed with clarity, which is I'm not comfortable speaking for the LDS because all I know is, because here's a question that I think is relevant too. Do you believe that the LDS missionary who comes to your door and shares certain things, do you believe that every single LDS person believes the exact same thing?
No.
I'm going to push back on that with my question. Why are they Mormons then? The Mormon, especially that comes to their door, has been trained to be a missionary. Just like Jehovah's Witnesses, they are trained. And when they say they do not believe the same thing, that's just hogwash. Why are they Mormons then? Why do they call themselves Mormon? And then more specifically, then present those Mormons who would say they do not believe whatever it is, because remember, they're not being specific. So present the Mormons that would say, well, I don't believe what Joseph Smith taught, the founder. This is hogwash here. Let's continue.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a saying in this ministry that you have to convert a Mormon to Mormonism before you can get anywhere. You have to, and it depends on who you're talking to. Two of my favorite people in the world I've ever met were Mormon missionaries. We spent 9 months together, and I still think about them. I still pray about them. I wonder how they're doing. Like, I really enjoyed their company. And we had candid conversations, and they were very easy to talk to. And the thing is that one of them knew. They were honest and they knew. Okay. They were informed and honest. Okay. And then you have those that are informed but aren't honest. And then you have those that are honest but not informed. And then you have, it's like you get this mixed bag, it seems, where you have LDS that don't actually they don't realize, oh, wow, the church teaches this. I'm like, yeah, it's on LDS.org. You know, it's like, this is something that has been taught, and it's official doctrine of the LDS church. And
well, I'm going to say, if that's true, because we could say the same within Christianity, that there's some heretical doctrines, some false doctrines that are taught within the Christian church. But you know what a true test come in at is, and as she just said, it's on their official church website. But more than that, it's taught in their churches. So I would highly doubt that you have a Mormon that's a part of a Mormon church for any length of time that doesn't know the depths of what put like this, not so much the depth, but the essentials of what Mormon teaches. Okay? And then the bigger question would be, when they then are confronted with that knowledge, what do they do with it? What do they do with it? When they are confronted and say, wow. And she's getting ready to list some of the very essentials of the Mormon faith. And when they're, and I'm gonna let her speak. And when my point is, when they are confronted with that, what do they do? Whether they're ignorant of it at first, and no doubt they're I'm trying to think, one of the a couple of the I know what it was, Gladys Knight. Gladys Knight. Now get this. Gladys Knight, the famous singer Gladys Knight, was a part of the Mormon church. I don't know if she still is. Gladys Knight grew up Baptist, but then in the later years she was a part of the Mormon church. Now why? Okay. Okay. Now, did she know the depths of the Mormons. And here is the interesting thing. By the way, Prince, the singer Prince, was a Jehovah's Witness. So yes, it is very possible for people to enter in. Why? Because of the deception that the Mormons present in order to get people into the congregations. As I said, later on, I'm going to show a clip of a Jesus movie that they produced. A Jesus movie based on the gospel. And I'll say this right off. Their Jesus movies is more scriptural than The Chosen. But once you get in and you begin to learn, now Gladys Knight was teaching some of the Mormons how to sing. Okay? So, yes, let's continue.
It's them going and looking at their own doctrine is really what it is. But I will give you that. Yes, there's a lot of LDS that don't know a lot of this stuff, but we're talking about the basics of LDS believism here. If they're sending out Mormon missionaries, they've trained them on what their gospel is, and that's progression. You progress to godhood. That's the pinnacle. Like you have to do these works, and celestial marriage is another one. Getting married in the temple is huge because you have to have a heavenly mother, a heavenly father to make spirit babies and have your own world and inhabit your own world. Heavenly Father was once a man and progressed to godhood, and so can you. And that's the whole point. And Jesus is our spirit brother, literally. So there's many gods in this aspect. We have an understanding of the Trinity. They believe it to be 3 separate gods. Like, are these things that sound familiar, that you've like known, or is this new information?
No, this is new information. When I say I'm not comfortable speaking for them, it's just solely because it's not because I haven't heard any of this stuff or haven't talked in depth about this stuff. I would say that of the list of things you just mentioned, I would say probably 40% of them are things that when I've asked specifically about that particular belief, they've said, no, it's not that, it's this, or it's that's nuanced and here's why, or whatever it is. So because it's that specific, that's why I'm like, I'm not LDS, so I'm not going to speak for LDS. B, I believe that there are things that, because there's a category too, who are people of LDS folks who are informed and who still disagree with some other informed folks about certain things. And I just am not in a position to get into that.
You would say that you're comfortable disagreeing with the official position of the LDS Church and what it teaches about the gospel and the identity of Jesus, because they have a saying in the LDS Church, do your best and Jesus will do the rest. And they mean that literally, like he's not enough. Like you have to do so much and he will do the rest. And there's an aspect there where, okay, your friends may not believe that. That's good. I wouldn't say that maybe they're more evangelical than LDS then. I don't know. I don't know them personally. But you seem to have a lot of love for them and respect. But let's put them aside and let's talk about the actual doctrine then itself. And this is stuff that any LDS missionary at your door will attribute to these things. Like the gospel that they preach is a very different one than you find in just the Bible alone. Like the Bible in and of itself is not seen as authoritative. They say, there's a saying, it's true as long as it's translated correctly. So, and what they mean by that is that there's errors, lots of them, and you can't trust the Bible. So here's the Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants and Pearl of Great Price and all these other things that were given to us by our prophet and directly from God. So we know that this is true. And all other churches, and this is why they say that you're going to go to heaven. I mean, they believe that we have some truth, but they have the completion of the truth. And that's why the Mormon missionaries are out on their bikes spreading the gospel. And so that's the whole thing, is that I don't think you would agree with that. I don't think that you, as an evangelical Christian of Orthodox Christian historic beliefs, would say, oh, I agree with that in clear conscience. These are the concerns, and these are the things that people do know a lot about. And actively are in these ministries. This is their wheelhouse, and this is what they've devoted their lives to, is reaching the LDS people. And so they're concerned in a loving way to see Dallas Jenkins, the man that they love and respect, the director of their beloved show, who's actually a Christian, doesn't fall into the trap that they've seen so many times happen with shows.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit on this, that I don't think he's already said that 95% of his show is not the Bible. Okay, so, he's already said that he believed that his Mormon, that the Mormons, and in particular his Mormon friends, that they love the same Jesus. So again, she's saying a lot of this. She's interjecting this, and again, that's really the main problem I have with the interview on her part. That she's not really asking, okay, if what you're saying is true, then does your friends believe? All of that brilliant stuff you just said. Let's continue.
Like, I've seen, there's such a pressure to cave to the culture, especially as you grow in popularity. And I think, I don't know.
I'm going to say he's already caved to the, and I don't know if he's caving to, I think if he's caving that this is what the kind of Jesus that he wants to present, which is 95% not biblical. Let's continue.
After meeting you and talking to you, you seem like you have a strong conviction. But I wouldn't say that you agree with those things.
Correct. I mean, I would say absolutely.
Again, sorry for cutting in, but yes, he can easily refute that. And that's really not the question to me here that he's answering. Of course he doesn't believe that as a Christian. Of course he doesn't. But that's not the point either. The point is, hey, how relevant and what is the influence that went into how he presented a authentic Jesus that's 95% not in the Bible. Let's continue.
I don't agree with the notion that Jesus isn't enough. I don't agree at all with the notion that the Bible isn't the authoritative word of God.
Mm-hmm. That Heavenly Father was once a man and you can be one too. I don't think these are, and no, my background is an ex-New Ager. Yeah, like that's the thing. That's the whole pinnacle point of the New Age, and the core doctrine is you can be like God. And in LDS Church, that's everything. Like that's exaltation is what they call it. You progress to godhood.
I'll just, again, I'm going to be very, very careful about which specific.
I don't blame you.
Of LDS faith that are being discussed, because I don't. There's multiple reasons for that. One, I'm not going to speak for the LDS Church. I'm not even going to speak for my friends specifically.
Well, speaking for you and what you specifically believe. Yeah.
I'm going to speak for myself, and I'm also going to speak for the show, because
yes,
that's a really important distinction, which is a lot of these things. Look, I'm willing to answer as many questions as possible. Some of them I'm going to be like, I'm just going to defer, because I'm like, I don't like to talk publicly about things in which I'm not even.
Fair enough.
Leave aside being ignorant of, but I'm saying things that I'm not even 100% about, because I have to be very cautious in what I say, and privately and publicly, because I care deeply about truth. But the important point I was trying to make was, a lot of these things, and I'm not saying this with any snark or disrespect, have nothing to do with the show. They just don't, and they don't have anything to do with my ministry or my belief. What is important is what.
Now, I would agree with him on this, that in the sense that the issue doesn't have anything to do with the show. I'll go a step further to say that a lot of it it's not in a sense relevant to the production of the show, in terms of the how Jesus is presented in that respect. I will later tell you what I think his decision and how he presented Jesus. It's not just a Mormon issue. But this was brought up. He made the statement, however, that the Mormon connection is greatly, right, influenced. It's greatly involved. Mormons are greatly involved in the production of this show. So it is a valid question to say, well, how, how deep, how much of an influence? And to me, he's avoiding that. Let's continue. I'm saying he's avoiding answering the question. And it could be that he doesn't want to offend his Mormon friends. But why? If he is presenting the gospel of Jesus, let's continue.
Believe and where I stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's absolutely fair for a viewer to know that where I stand on my beliefs and where I stand on my doctrine, and to have perhaps a general understanding of where I stand on other faiths.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me to say, okay, I'm not a Catholic, I'm not LDS, I'm not Greek Orthodox. I work with a lot of people who are. I know a lot more about that than I used to, and I'm close friends with a lot of them, and a lot of them have done more for this show than anyone else has ever done. So I'm grateful to them, and I love them, and they're my close friends. But my beliefs or my understanding about their religion, I'm not talking about my own faith, but theirs is just not relevant to the show unless you're watching the show and somehow something creeps in that's
yes, unless you're
UAG
influenced by it.
Right.
Yes.
And I would say that in the evangelical world, in my own church, which has its own doctrine of faith, in my own church, I believe that there are evangelicals, quote unquote, or people with whom I would strongly disagree. And I have friends of mine within that church with whom I believe they are on this works grace spectrum, too far on the work side.
Totally apples and oranges. Totally. What's worse about this is that he has elevated Mormons to the same level as these doctrinal arguments that exist between denominations within the Orthodox Christian faith. Let me say that again. He's elevated Mormons, and what he just said, the basic of their beliefs are unbiblical. Mormons are not Christians. They are not saved. Their teaching will not bring you salvation. And that's totally different, because when you say then, even the stuff that he agreed, what she laid out about what the Mormons believe, how basically the Christian church is wrong, right? That the Mormon are the ones who have the new revelations and the accurate revelations. But of course, there's a lot of goofed up stuff that she laid out about, Jesus being the spirit brother of Lucifer. God wants a man. Now, these are the most central things right here. So his defense of his Mormon friend, and you saying that this is the same Jesus? See, this is the same Jesus? Are you telling me that this is, and this is, notice he's not, again, answering that. Let's continue.
I have friends who I think are too far on the grace side. So I'm an Ephesians 2:8-9 guy. It is by grace you are saved through faith and not of works, lest any man should boast.
Yep.
But on the other hand, the book of James exists, which talks about faith without works is dead. So it is a spectrum. And I have friends who I believe have a very dangerous reliance on works. I have friends who I believe have a very dangerous reliance on grace, who go like, they tend to have the worst marriages. They tend to have the worst behavior because they're so grace focused. It's all just, hey man, God forgives. And so when people say to me things like, well, why should we not evangelize to LDS folks because they've got it, they're saved, so we shouldn't even bother. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I think we should not stop evangelizing to anybody. I mean, including within the evangelical church. I don't believe that everybody who attends an evangelical church or who has even assigned membership to a church has the monopoly on truth or the monopoly on the correct Orthodox beliefs. The LDS folks who I'm working with on this project, We disagree on many things, and I'm not even going to throw them under the bus by saying that they don't agree with their own statements of faith. All I'm going to say is that I have had arguments with fellow evangelicals about works versus grace. I have had arguments with LDS folks about works versus grace. My point in saying this is that I just don't, when in the context of this show, when what my ministry, my passion, my calling, the calling of my wife and me.
All right, I'm not buying the whole breakdown here of the tiers, but again, there's not equality here. Mormons are not equal in their faith and in their beliefs to Christians. And I that's the essential thing here. That's the essential thing. I want to play one more clip here, well, I'll let him finish out this, and I'm gonna switch over to another clip.
What we've dedicated our lives to and dedicated our entire hearts and minds to, and have sacrificed everything to do. And that is all, besides, of course, being a husband and father and serving others and whatnot. But my calling of my life is to make the authentic Jesus known to the entire world.
Now, again, notice he's saying this is a calling, which means then that this calling came from God. And so this is my pushback. Beyond the Mormon influence, which I certainly think there's a Mormon influence there. And again, I'll get into that in the next video. I'm going to get into the next video because I certainly want to show in the next video where I think really the major problems with the chosen is. Okay, Mormons is a part of it, but there are other factors as well. And again, I'm going to come out of this because I think I'm done with this. But I'll pick this up at the next video. That the biggest problem here to me with the interview, besides Melissa softballing it, of course, that she allowed him to just skirt around. Now, at the end of the day, do I think that Dallas is in cahoots with the Mormons to try to get out a Mormon doctrine with the vehicle of the chosen? Absolutely not. That I don't even think that the Mormon doctrine itself has really any relevance with the chosen. Okay? In other words, the reason why we dealt with that is because he brought it up. And like I said, in the next video, I'm going to show you where I think where the Mormon influence comes in. But it's not in the fact that when you watch the chosen that secretly you're watching a Mormon depiction of Jesus. No, not at all. But I will get into it and show you why. And as he has said, 95% of the chosen is not a biblical production. Therefore, it is not a biblical Jesus. And I'll get into that in the next video. Look, guys, love to hear your opinions and your thoughts on this. Add it to the comment section. And remember, all comments are welcome. And don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. Till next time, I'll see you then.